Yeah, I say try and then say in input. There's a number between. I say assert. So this is the keyword I should be using. So it's like if and else statement, right? So whatever I write between in front of this, if that expression is true, then assertion error won't raise. If whatever I write in front of it, the statement evaluates to false, then assertion error exception will be raised. For example, if I say greater than equal to 5 and x less than equal to 10, then entered is the now except in which I will have the assertion error. Here, cancel. Hmm. Condition is not met. So let's say what I'm learning here is this assertion keyword. Whatever expression I write in front of it, if that becomes true, then the below statement will be executed. If whatever I write in front of it, this expression evaluates to false, then assertion error will be accepted. Assertion error exception will be raised, and this statement will be printed. So in this case, I need an input from the user, right? Right click run. If I run this, right click run. And if I write 12 here, if I write 12, the condition is not met, right? So this assertion error exception is raised and it will basically print the statement. But if I enter a value which is within the range, then it says the number entered is 7 because I have entered 7. Now, with this assertion error, if you want to raise the message also, you can do it. So I will simply copy paste this. So for example, I want this message to be printed. Let's say the entered number was not within range. Okay. So this is the message I want to print, let's say. Okay. So you can receive the message as object, then you can simply print it. Now, when this assertion will be failed, this assertion if fails, this message will be received as object in the exception error except. If I right click and run this, it should be commenting in this out. By right click and move this. Enter 7. The enter is 7. If I deliberately enter the value which is greater than range of 5 to 10 to 14, condition is not met, the entered number was not within the range. So this matches we receive as an object and then we print. And you can create your own exceptions also, right? So you can create your own exception that are user defined exceptions. Okay. For example, your own exception can be cleared from the exception class. Let's say my exception is a, I'm giving my exception name as my exception. And this is the exception. So whenever you are creating your own exception, you have to inherit the exception class. And this is my exception name. Okay. And to this, basically, I am writing in a constructor which will set the message for the exception. So when this exception, my exception will be raised, or we need to basically create the object of this class, my exception. So this is my exception name, and this is I have to inherit from the global class, which is exception. So I need to set up the message. So let's say I set up the message like this in it. Dot message equal to message. Here I have message X and I am validating the values. So I have just written one class which basically takes an X as a string and will basically set up the value for the self dot message. So this exception will be raised. Now let's say how I can use this rule. Let's say I have a method, writing a method to check for the low balance, let's say, for the low balance. We are basically checking for the low balance, right? So for this low balance, I'm writing one method. To this method, I will be passing one dictionary. And I'm iterating through the dictionary. So I'm looping through the dictionary to check the balance, okay? How I iterate to a dictionary for key, comma, value in what is the dictionary name dict dot atoms. If the value is less than if v is less than 2000, let's say, I want to raise my exception. I'll say raise and this exception, whatever I created with the message. I need to pass the message also because this is expecting the value of this constructor argument, right? So I will be passing. So I will be passing this method check a dictionary and I will look through the dictionary and check if the balance is less than 2000. And if I found that any balance is less than 2000, I will quickly raise an exception saying balance amount is less than 1000. Balance amount is less than 1000. Plus, and you can say K. So let's quickly create one dictionary and call this method. Okay. So I created a dictionary. So this is how you create a dictionary. And let's say you have three names here. Chinmay, the balance is let's say 3000. The balance is 5000. I save this. Now I need to call the method. So I say check and to this check method, which I have written, I am passing this dictionary. And deliberately I am making the balance for Sarika less than 500. If you run this, I'm commenting this. Stop and there. And then so I have written one exception which will just print the message. This raise is the keyword which will raise the exception if the value of this dictionary goes below 2000. Then I'm printing the message. Okay. Right click run. See, the exception is raised. What is the exception? Balance amount is less than 2000 for Sarika. See. But I don't want this exception to be raised in a such way that it halts the program execution. So what I need to do in this case, I also have to surround it with the try catch block. So I can basically have that exception and print the message and the program should not be altered. It should be, the next step should be executed. So you basically wrap this around try catch. So now this is try. And if this causes any exception, then it will basically go to the exception as E. And then exception. So what is the exception name also? So this is the except block. This is except block. What is the exception name? My exception as E. And then I'm printing the message. So whatever the exception is raised, I'm basically printing the message for the same. So now if I right click and run this, let's say for example, in start of the program, let's say you have something like print hello. And at the last of the program, let's say bye. My program execution will not be halt, right? If I say by, you right click and run this. See now exactly. Now the balance amount is less than 2000 for Sarika. There is no program halt because by is also printed and hello is also printed. So when I basically check and pass a dictionary to it, what happened? The exception was raised and an exception was basically handled here and then it got printed here. Fine. So this was user defined exception. So you can basically write your own exceptions like this. This is the way you can write your own exceptions. So this is about exceptions. Now there is a way you can basically log your exceptions. Logging the exception. So logging the exception is also one way. Right? But to log the exception, we need to know the file concept. Okay. So what we'll do, we'll start with the file concept and then I will come back to the topic to tell you how to basically log the exception in a file. So obviously logging the exception in the file helps you helps you to debug on the later stage. Okay. So once you are developing a very big software, let's say, and there are a lot of exceptions which are raised, right? You need to basically, when you're writing any big application and there are exceptions raised, you have to log that exception into one file, right? When you log the exceptions into file, you can go back and check the file again, right? So for that, you need to first know how to basically open the file, read the file in the Python. So there are multiple ways to read and write a text file. Okay. So let's say, for example, I will start with the text file options. So this is new topic and which is file handling in Python. Okay. Then we'll come back and learn this also, how to log the exceptions. Okay. So now the topic is file handling in. So in Python, if you want to just open a file, okay, then there is an open class, right? So let's say you want to open a file. So opening a file. How you open a file? You say open. And my file.txt. And this is the mode in which you want to open the file. Let's say I want to open the file in write mode. I want to write a file. So this is the object, right? We created. And this is the reference variable. Now on this reference variable, there are many methods. Okay. So let's say I open one file with my file.txt. If the file exits, it will open. Let's say, for example, here the file exists, right? So let me quickly delete it. I just want to have one question for you. Are you focusing on the class? Star Naju?
Yes, yes.
Then why this message is coming up in between the class, right?
Yeah, I thought like I'll
No,
remind you.
you are depending upon the recording, which will not help you. Okay, I have the statistic. Half of the you people even not complete the recording. You will never go and see the recording also, right?
Yeah, like
Yeah,
after the class, like I'm going through the recording and practicing it. That's the reason
Okay. Let's say, for example, I'm opening the file and I'm opening the file in basically the write mode, right? Now let's say this is the reference variable I created for this open class, right? And when you basically do like input to take the value from the user, let's say, and you say enter the text, right? You are expecting the user to enter the text. Whatever the text he has entered, you basically store it into one variable. Let's say you store it into the str, and you will say f dot write, and whatever you have written, you can store it here. So I open the file into the write mode. I take the value from the user and I basically write in the this object reference variable. I have the write method. I am writing that into the file. And at the last, I am basically closing the file. So you can basically close the file like this. So let's say, for example, this line is responsible for opening the file in Python. This is basically taking the user from the input from user. This file is basically writing into the file. And this is basically closing the file. Now if I right click and run this file, so already there is my file.txt, so I will delete this. Or you create one more file, let's say my file2.txt, let's be great. If I right click and run this program, okay, so if I right click and run this program again, and I am asked, I write Chinmay, I enter the text Chinmay. So one file is created, my file2.txt, and if you open it, there is Chinmay written over it, right? So this will basically open one file in a write mode because we want to write, so write mode. The file name is myfile2.txt. Whatever it is open is stored into the f reference variable. I have taken the input from the user, and whatever the input they have written, this input basically returns me a string value that I have stored into the str. Okay. Then after that, I have written that str. So f dot write str. So I have written that str and I have closed that file. Okay. Now let's say this is the first program. Now I want to, let's say, write a program to read the file. When I'm writing a program to read the file, still I want to create the object of open class only. And here I will be writing which file I want to read. So I will be passing the name again. And which mode I want to open this file. Let's say I want to open this file in the read mode now. And I can basically store it in a reference variable, which is When you want to read the file, you open the file first, and then there is a simple method called as read method. So this read method returns you one string, so you can store that. It basically read the complete file as one single string. You close that, you call the method, you basically print the string onto the console, and at the last you again close the file. You say print char. You right click and run. So let's close this because we don't want to write again. I think the file was overwritten, so everything was removed. So again, we need to write into the file. We need to uncomment this again and write into the file first. Okay. So let's say I save this, I right click and run, and I'm typing the text. Hello, yeah, I am learning Python. And see, I am getting that I am learning Python text because I read to text. And then I forget to close the file, so I should be closing the file also. This way, I can read and write into the file. Yeah. So now if I basically comment it out, so there is another mode which is called as append mode, right? So let's say, for example, if I try to read this file again, okay, let's say I am copy pasting this code. And if you check, if you go and check this my file 2.txt, if I go here and check this, it already has one text. I am learning Python, right? And if I run this code again, it will override it. Let's say if I write Sarika and I click enter and if I see the file again, see I am learning Python is gone, right? So when you open it in a write mode, it basically overrides the complete file, right? So I don't want this to be happening, right? I want the file, whatever the text I inputted should be added to the file, not overridden the previously existing text, right? So for this, what I need to do? For this, I need to basically open my file into the append mode. When I say open the file into the append mode means what? I will open the file in A plus mode. So A plus means basically append mode. Okay. So append. So it will not remove the previous text. It will append the text into. Okay. So let's say A plus. So let's say I store the file, I save the file again. I right click and I run. So let's say I input the text again. Let's say Purva. And now if you see now, if you go and see there, Sarika is still there and Purva is also added. So you can add a tab space or you can add it to the next line. So while writing, basically, you can say plus, and then you can basically say slash n. You right click and run. Now you see the added to the next line. While writing, I added slash n. Mm,
It should be
see.
added to the last or the front.
Yeah, it added to the next line, right? Whatever you write after this will be added to the next line. See, next line, coming to the next line, right? File was not, so this slash n will be responsible for adding to the next line. So this is the opening the file in append mode. This was in read mode, and this was in write mode.